What are you guys doing?
Playing.
Playing?
Games.
Oh, Coca Bear, what's wrong? You okay? Should we teach about color grading today? Kai, do you know anything about color grading?
I don't know.
No?
I will go to the office someday.
I think everybody misses you a lot. Dad's gotta go. High five. Yeah! Note to self, don't be lazy and scared of the cold. I thought, you know, it's cold outside, I'll just fly through the window. Don't do that.
The drone is fine though. Good job, buddy.
I think we can all agree that we want high quality colors in our videos done fast. We don't want to be spending hours on color grading. And do you know how long it takes me to color grade my videos? Like 5-10 minutes at most. My color grading workflow over time has really been optimized for speed while still keeping a pretty professional, high quality look. I figured out ways to do it super fast and efficiently, and that's what I'm gonna show you today. And I'm gonna be doing it in Final Cut Pro because that's what I've been using lately, although I have been thinking about switching to Premiere. Is that a mistake? Oh, and we just launched a new LUT pack made specifically for Sony cameras, the Cine Sony LUT pack. We made 5 looks and 10 conversion LUTs so you can work with S-Log2 or S-Log3 really fast. These are the LUTs that I use exclusively, and now you have access to them too. I absolutely love the teal and orange FILMIC. That's what I've been using for like the last few months, but I also very, very much like the Moody Warm. Those are my favorites, but all 5 looks are really great. Anyways, this is how I color grade in 2022. Spoiler, it's simple, fast, and pretty easy. Now I'm gonna assume that all of us are shooting in log because you really should be using a log profile to get the most out of your camera, and it's not as scary as you think. It saves so much more data while you're filming so that you have more room in post to take it this way or that way, and it's more forgiving while you're filming. So if you overexposed or underexposed a little bit, it's not gonna matter as much. As if you're not using a log profile, you're not gonna have as much information in the highlights or the shadows, and you're just not gonna get as much out of your camera. There's this idea that it's so much harder working with log footage. In my opinion, it's the exact opposite. It just gives you way more options, and it allows for some errors to be made while you're filming. I'll show you how to work with log. It's very simple. I prefer S-Log3 right now, and I made a whole video about my Sony camera settings if you're interested. Color grading consists of 3 steps. First, you're gonna convert your log footage to a natural contrast and saturation, Rec 709 or BT 2020. Those are just fancy versions for saying normal amount of contrast and saturation. Number 2, you're gonna color correct or color match your clips. And then number 3, you're gonna add your look or grade. Now for me, I actually like to do the color correcting last. And at the end of this, I'm gonna show you a way to do all 3 of these even faster, like lightning fast. All right, number 1, what I do here is I've finished my edit. I'm gonna add an adjustment layer over all of my footage, and I'm gonna add to it 2 custom LUTs. The first LUT I'm gonna add is just the conversion LUT that's gonna bring my log footage to a good amount of contrast and saturation. In my case, it's the S-Log3 Matti Special. Bam, done. If you've been scared of log, that's basically it. That's it. Now you could add contrast and saturation and tweak it yourself, but this is just so much faster. And there's other conversion LUTs for free that you can find. Some of them are okay, but actually we made 10 different conversion LUTs depending on which gamma profile you're using, S-Log2 or S-Log3, and then for a few different color profiles. For example, if you're using S-Log2, S-Cinetone, Bam, you just add that conversion LUT, you're ready to go. It's literally that easy. Or if you're using the Matti Special, it's S-Log3 with S-Cinetone. Add 15 saturation and sharpness out -1. You just add the conversion LUT, boom, done. And there's even a dark version to just give you a little bit more options. Again, speed is the key here. Step 1 literally took 2 seconds. Don't spend hours doing this each time. Just use a LUT. And again, you might be asking, why am I doing this? Why am I not just filming with contrast? Again, 2 reasons. If you make a mistake exposing, you can't get that detail in the highlights or shadows back, you're screwed. And then 2, you're getting more dynamic range out of your camera, which is just like, it's a key thing for a high quality image. To make it look good, you need more dynamic range. So even though you're adding that contrast and saturation, you get to decide how much and how much of the highlights you're keeping and all of that. Oh, and it really helps to have a high quality, bigger display to see exactly what you're doing while you're color grading. This isn't sponsored, but LG sent me this 32-inch 4K OLED display for design and video professionals. It's really nice to color grade with. They also sent me this ridiculously big monitor, which look at all this screen real estate. Like, look at that timeline. I could be doing so much at once. Tyler's been absolutely loving this thing. Having a good display is huge because you could color grade absolutely perfectly, but if your display is not good and doesn't show colors accurately, when other people see that footage, they're gonna be like, whoa, what were you doing with your color grade? And it's something that we can't fully avoid. Even if you use the best monitors, it's still, somebody's gonna be watching it on some other weird random color profile and all of a sudden your skin tones are so saturated. It's just something that you have to deal with, but it does help to have a great display so that you are starting from a good place. Step 2 is to add your look or grade LUT, and this is completely creative and subjective to your style. There are some like color science-y things that make certain color grades look better, but this is 100% creative, subjective. And we made 5 different looks in the Cine Sony LUT pack. There's Cold Vibes, which has this nice cool tones look. Then there's Warm Moody, which I really like. And I try to name these so they're kind of obvious what they do and not just some like random name that you're like, wait, what was that again? You have to like try it out. You know that Warm Moody is gonna be warm and moody. Soft FILMIC has kind of this California warm teal and orange glowy look to it, really cool. Neutral FILMIC, this one is pretty light and gives a nice cinematic look, but it's not heavy-handed at all. And finally, my favorite is the teal and orange FILMIC. This is what I've been using for months now. Jake really killed it on these. We were working back and forth with them. And you could use these LUTs on any camera, but the conversions are for specifically Sony cameras working in S-Log2 and S-Log3. Key thing here is make sure that the conversion LUT is being applied first and then your look after that. That's very, very important. You don't want to be converting the LUT look. On Final Cut, that means you want to have the conversion at the top and then the look under that. If you're using Premiere, you can actually put the conversion LUT in the basic settings, and then in the creative, you can use whatever look LUT you want. And the best part about this workflow is that you can dial in the look LUT, you can turn it down or turn it up as you like without changing the contrast and saturation. Whereas if everything was on one LUT, you would dial it in, dial down a little bit, and it would change the contrast and saturation. Then you'd have to go back and add contrast and saturation and all that stuff. This is way better, way faster. And look at the difference. All I did was add 2 LUTs, took me 2 seconds, and look at the difference. It looks great already, and I'm gonna show you how to do this even faster at the end. Step 3 is to color correct or color match your footage, and this is the hardest part. It's the part that takes the most practice. And now a lot of times I do just add the 2 LUTs and I'm like, That looks good. That looks great. I just go with that. But if you want to go the extra 10, 20%, then you're gonna need to color correct, especially if your shooting wasn't that good. And the way I usually do this is if a bunch of clips all have the same issue, then I'm gonna do that color correction straight on the adjustment layer. I might cut the adjustment layer for the different scenarios in my video, but this means I don't have to go through each clip and add a color correction to that one and that one and that one. I can just do it all at once for that section. For example, if I wanted this to look a little bit warmer, quick adjustment done on the whole thing. Or you can see this section, it's a little bit too blue and dark and desaturated. We can just make those adjustments really quickly to the adjustment layer. Boom, done, ready to go. And again, it's very important that this adjustment comes before your look and your conversion LUT. It would be right at the top. First thing you want to affect your footage. And if you want just a little bit more quality, even though I love the teal and orange look, it's just not natural to have blue in the deep, dark, black areas of your image. Naturally, when we see things and something is like really dark black, there's no color to it. And so you shouldn't have this blue tint over all of the really dark areas on your video. But it's actually really easy to solve this. You just need to desaturate your shadows and maybe even your highlights. Just take your hue saturation curve, go to the luma versus saturation. And this is your saturation from the shadows to the highlights. You can bring up or down the saturation of a specific exposure on your clip. So we can just go to the shadows and bring that down. And there we go, we've desaturated the darkest parts of our image. It's very subtle, but it's these little changes that make a really big difference in the end. Just make sure you're not desaturating your midtones. And make sure this is being added last. You don't wanna be introducing colors after this, so this should be the last thing on your list of corrections. And then go through each of those sections and make sure the clips match each other in both exposure, contrast, and in colors and saturation. Pro tip here is to use scopes. Our eyes constantly lie to us. They get used to colors and maybe there's, you know, a blue light shining, and so your eyes will actually adjust to all of those things. But scopes never lie. They always tell the truth. And that's why you really need to get used to relying on these scopes. I love the waveform and the vector scope. The waveform just shows your exposure values from 0 IRE, which is the darkest on the bottom, to 100 IRE, which is the brightest on the top. And so you can see really quickly whether you're overexposed or underexposed. Basically, you would want your shadows to be touching that 0 IRE, and your highlights, if you have something really bright like the sun, that should be touching the 100 IRE. There is some nuance to that, but that's kind of the basics. If the contrast or exposure looks different on one clip, just open up your waveform and check out, are your shadows raised or are your highlights too crushed, and then fix it. And notice as you adjust the shadows, you're also adjusting the midtones and maybe even the highlights a little bit. And same thing if you're adjusting the highlights, it's gonna affect different parts of your image. So you kind of have to go back and forth and finesse them. You can't just do one adjustment and then you're done. And for colors, we want to use the vector scope. And this is really just showing you where your colors are shifting to. They should be around that center dot. And then the further out they go, the more saturated your image is. The key thing we're looking at here is the skin tones. And there's actually this little flesh line. And so all skin tones, no matter what your complexion, should follow this flesh line. If they're not, then your skin tones are gonna be looking too green or too magenta. And pro tip here is if you're like, I don't know what's going on here, just take a mask around your skin tones, and now you know exactly where your skin tones lie. And then you can just make the adjustments so that the skin tones are on that flesh line. That's how you get perfect skin tones every time. I'm gonna make a whole video on how to deal with skin tones because that's probably the hardest thing about color correcting and color grading in general. We could go on forever about this, but that's basically all I do. Now you could go further with your color grade and do things like power windows and affect certain areas of your image separately. But honestly, for most of my videos, I do these adjustments pretty quickly. The only other thing I've been doing lately is adding a little bit of grain using Film Convert. I don't actually use their looks, but I like how grain can be applied with their plugin because you can affect what parts, what exposures it's affecting and how it affects it. I don't know, it just gives it a little bit of a film look. So that's my little extra spice. It is a paid plugin, so it's really good, but you don't need it. There's other ways to do grain also. But that's it, super easy. Add the conversion LUT, add your look LUT, small adjustments, that's it. How do you do this faster? Well, of course, use those LUTs like I showed you, but once you have this set up, just make a preset. Then it's literally just drag, drop, adjust it a tiny bit, you're done. Like it's that fast. And that's how I'm able to color grade a whole video within just a few minutes. And remember, you don't have to use my LUTs. I really like my LUTs and I think you will also, but there's tons of LUTs and conversion LUTs and all of that stuff out there. Find what works best for you, but I really highly recommend using LUTs and then figure out what plugins you wanna use, which ones you like best, and make a preset and then just drag and drop. Done. That's the same thing I do with my audio. I have audio presets if you didn't know. I just drag and drop, done. Sounds way better than just straight out of camera, and it took me 2 seconds to drag and drop that. Don't be scared of log and do not neglect your color grade because with really little effort, very fast, you can make your footage look so much better. Get everything you can out of your footage. Okay, that's it for me. I'll do a whole video on how I deal with skin tones, but I hope this helped you like it has for me. It's taken years to streamline it like this. Hopefully it doesn't take you years. Just watch this video and start doing it. All right, see you guys.